What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the DFS Dose YouTube channel, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you are watching the late night Saturday stream. I'm Ben Hauver, joined as I always am by Joey Carrion. Buddy, how you feeling about this Week 5 slate? It's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting week. I'm feeling good, and I'm ready to bank a tournament tomorrow.
Yeah, I am as well. I'm really excited to play some tournaments, and we can just jump right in. If anybody watching has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat at any point. We'll get to every question that we possibly can for the next hour and 20, however long this ends up going, Joey. But I think from now on, we're going to start just sort of going position by position and then getting to questions. So we can start off with quarterback. And we talked about it on the podcast. We recorded on Wednesday. It looked like Trey Lance was possibly going to be the starter. It was announced on Friday that he would be the starter. And I think he figures to be the highest owned quarterback on DraftKings this week at 5,700.
Yeah, Trey Lance is projecting really well right now. He's relatively cheap for his upside and his floor due to his rushing ability. We saw last week 7 for 41 on the ground in one half of football, and he ended up scoring like 18 points or something.
Yeah.
And it's a solid game environment going up against Arizona. It's just, I don't know. I think I'm also considering Daniel Jones, who, you could see on the screen at 6K, in a great spot, in my opinion, in a higher total game, going into Dallas with just as great of a rushing floor, in my opinion. So I'm kind of debating between the two, and I don't know. I don't really have a lean right now.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, I was kind of in on Daniel Jones. I know that they've got a little bit of concern with the offensive line right now. Shepard's out, Godius is out. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones has been getting it done regardless. I like Daniel Jones, man, but I'm not going to lie. I also have been building a lot of Dallas Cowboys defense into my lineups in tournaments. So I think I might be on the other side of this and just sort of fading, for the most part, the offenses in this game. We'll get to CeeDee Lamb, but he's really popular this week. I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about this game. I think that it's a game I might stay away from just because of the ownership and the different ways that I think I could see it going realistically.
Yeah, in tournaments, it's definitely tough to play just because of the ownership around some of the guys like CeeDee Lamb. Kadarius Toney is going to be owned. Daniel Jones is going to be one of the highest owned quarterbacks on this slate. So I would look to other games for tournaments just for ownership purposes. But in cash games, I don't know. It's kind of hard to play Trey Lance over Daniel Jones, in my opinion. It's really close, and I don't really have a preferred lean, like I just said. But God, they're both great plays, in my opinion. So I'm not too sure which one I'm going to roll with in cash, but I think they're both great plays.
Yeah. Are we sort of past the consideration of Kyler Murray for cash? I mean, from a tournament perspective, these four quarterbacks from those two games are going to be the highest owned quarterbacks on the slate: Kyler, Lance, Dak, and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler's a great play, and I think he's a great tournament play, especially at a lower ownership than Trey Lance, Dak, Daniel Jones, etc. But in cash games specifically, I think it's hard to get up there with the lack of value options that we have on the slate. Obviously, there are some questions around Curtis Samuel, and he would be the punt wide receiver that everybody would go to. But after last week, I'm personally not going there. I think the lowest that I would go is Kadarius Toney at 4K, who I think is actually a pretty solid cash game play if you need to save the salary. But other than, Toney and punt tight end, there's really not a way to fit Kyler Murray into your lineup. So he's out of cash consideration for me, but in tournaments, he's one of the best plays on the board.
So Curtis Samuel did not practice on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday, and got a limited practice in on Friday. So we are expecting him to suit up in this spot. Curtis is an interesting play. He was on under 40% of snaps last week, which you don't love to see, but I guess another week of getting off of IR is a good thing. So besides these four quarterbacks, where else are you looking in tournaments? Because after that, there's a pretty steep drop off in terms of ownership projections. Like you can get a lot of leverage by playing pretty much anybody other than those 4 quarterbacks that we've mentioned.
Yeah, just in tournaments, you're going to want to stay away from Daniel Jones and Trey Lance pretty much. Jalen Hurts is obviously a fine play every single week. He hasn't scored less than 20 DraftKings points in any game that he started in the NFL. So the floor is high for Jalen Hurts. The ceiling is high. So I like him. Kirk Cousins, I mean, I talked about it in my video and on the pod. I love the Viking stack this week against, the Lions, Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Tyler Conklin, etc. So I like Kirk. And then Joe Burrow, I think, is a great tournament play at 6,100. His pass catching options are cheap. You can run it back with Devante Adams if you want to eat the chalk there, or if you want to get leverage off of Devante Adams, and we'll touch on it when we talk about running back. But Aaron Jones is one of the best tournament running back plays this week. He's a great leverage play, and he's great leverage off of the chalky guys at the top of the player pool. So I think my favorite quarterbacks that aren't chalk would be Kirk, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Joe Burrow. I've really been getting into the Cincinnati side of the ball. I think it's a great spot for them. I love the Joe Burrow double stack, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, or you could do it with Boyd, or you could even, throw CJ Uzoma in there as a tight end who's going to go completely unowned and, projects just about the same as all the other tight ends. Like CJ Uzoma could outscore Evan Ingram easily. Like it probably happens 50% of the time in these spots, and you're going to be getting like, a 20th of the ownership on CJ Uzoma. So I like that in Joe Burrow stacks. The other quarterback that I want to bring up is Justin Fields. I don't know how you feel about this, but Fields is a player that we should like for just about all the same reasons that we like Trey Lance for. He's officially the starter. He's going to be the starter for the Bears here on out. Obviously it was a pretty poor showing in week 1, and then week 4, he played well, but they just didn't need to really, lean on him because they got out to a big lead early. I think that the Raiders are going to put up more of a fight than the, decrepit Lions did last week. And, a Justin Fields stack, like a Chicago stack, Allen Robinson is going to be like 5% owned. He's 5,500. I love that. Darnell Mooney, his underlying usage, his air yards, all of that stuff looks really good. He's going to be like 5% owned. And you're getting leverage off of Damian Williams by going with the Bears passing attack. And Damian Williams figures to be one of the highest owned running backs on the slate. So I really do like going down to Justin Fields. He's cheap. He allows you to eat the chalk at, say, Derrick Henry with running back because, you have the salary by playing that cheap stack. And, it's just going to be low ownership. So the cumulative ownership on your Justin Fields lineups are going to be, right where you want them to be in tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind Justin Fields. It's just the game environment, I think, is pretty bad. It has a total of 44. And it just concerns me that, they've basically all they've done is just to try and hide Justin Fields. Just get in the games and try and win and get out as quick as possible without really letting him be the playmaker that we know he can be, especially on the ground. And if he runs the ball 3 to 5 times, he's not going to win you a tournament, right? We want that to be in the 10 attempt range. We want him to be Jalen Hurts, right? Running the ball a lot. Everything runs through him, especially with David Montgomery out. I just don't know if that's going to happen. So I don't know if I'm going to have much Fields. I'll probably run a lineup with him. But other than that, I think I'm off Fields. And this Bears offense in general, I think, is one to stay away from in terms of fantasy purposes. So that's just how I feel about Fields. I would rather just go up to a Daniel Jones or a Joe Burrow for 800, 900 more.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, other than those guys that we've mentioned, there aren't really any other quarterbacks that I'm really super high on. Like, I could see myself running a Tannehill to AJ Brown stack, just sort of getting some leverage off of Derrick Henry and, hoping for the AJ Brown smash game. And we'll talk about Brown at wide receiver because I think it's pretty interesting to discuss him versus Keenan Allen at the same price point. But moving on to running back, Matt in the chat says Mixon a smash play if he suits up. And I think that Mixon is actually going to play in this spot.
Yeah, I think Mixon is trending towards playing, but I would disagree. I would stay away from Mixon, especially with
Mm,
him coming off of an ankle injury. I would assume that his workload isn't going to be what it was on the screen, getting 90% of the running back touches in the Bengals backfield. I think Preen is going to come in a little bit, and I think they're going to mix in Chris Evans on passing downs as well, especially with Mixon being questionable, right? And if he does play, I don't think he's going to be a full workload guy. So personally, am not playing any Joe Mixon. I think his upside when healthy isn't that big, right? So now you're throwing an injury in there
mm.
as well, and you could see here 13, 10, 8 when healthy, and he had a great game week 1, but I don't know. I am a Mixon hater, so I am biased. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I kind of feel the same way. Like it's similar in principle. So like I like the theory behind it. Like it's kind of like why I played Dalvin Cook last week. Like, you
Hmm.
buy into players coming off injury who are in good spots at reduced ownership because people are afraid of the injuries. But I just would rather attack the Bengals passing game in this spot, to be honest with you. Like no Jair Alexander. We saw them trend a
Hmm.
little bit more pass heavy for the first time last year. So I mean, I like it, but at the same time, like I want to stick with the principle that if they play, they're essentially ready to go. Like I don't think they would rush him back if he wasn't ready. If he suits up, you don't think he's 100%. I don't see why they would rush him back. Yeah, I agree with that. Like that's kind of how I tend to attack these things. But just from a raw perspective, like I think I prefer DeAndre Swift right below him at 6,100. TJ Hawkinson is legit questionable, and if there's no Hawkinson, like DeAndre Swift could get like 10 plus targets in this spot easily.
Yeah, and it's a great game for DeAndre Swift, right? Like the Vikings defense isn't great. If Hawkinson is out, DeAndre Swift becomes the number one option in the passing game. And you see it right here on the screen, 11, 6, 7, 5 targets. So he's going to get work in the receiving game. Last week was a floor game in 8 points. I think that goes up, and he's one of the best tournament plays on the board. And currently a sneak peek behind the curtain. Kirk Cousins stack with DeAndre Swift is probably going to be my Millie stack. So
Mm-hmm.
I love DeAndre Swift. I love this game as a low owned potential, shootout game. These defenses are just so bad. The Lions can put up points, in my opinion, especially against bad defenses. So I am on the Vikings stack. I am on DeAndre Swift. I love that. I think DeAndre Swift should definitely eat in garbage time. Cook last week scares me off Mixon. Yeah, I mean, I played a bunch of Cook, but
Yeah, me too.
I think that Mixon is banged up right now, and he's gonna try and play. It's been 10 days since that Thursday game, so there's been a good amount of time between the injury for him to recover. So if he plays, he should see work. I'm just concerned about his upside in general, and then you add an injury in there, and it's a no go for me. And then John put in the chat, should I trade Najee for Swift and Devontae Smith, or Swift and Waddle, or just keep Najee? By the way, my wide receiver 2 is Kadarius Toney, while Shepard, Judy, and Michael Thomas are out. God damn, you're hurting that wide receiver.
I would, yes, I would trade Najee for Swift and Devontae Smith if your wide receiver two is Kadarius Toney. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously sacrificing a little bit at running back, just in terms of like guaranteed points, because Najee's never leaving the field. Has a solid pass catching role, has the goal line role, but DeAndre Swift's floor is still really high. That we just talked about it with his pass catching ability, and then Devontae Smith is a clear number one in Philly. So I think I would make that trade as well.
Yeah. So we can't really talk about the running back position on DraftKings without bringing up the Dalvin Cook situation. Seemed like early in the week he was trending towards giving it a go, sort of playing through the established injury, but I think he is legitimately questionable. He's going to be a game time decision. We're probably not going to get the news until, an hour and a half before lock when inactives are released. And if Dalvin Cook is out, Alexander Madison, stone cold lock in 100% of my lineups. I'm feeling like no cap.
Yeah, if Cook is out, you have to lock in Madison. So you definitely have to pay attention. Tomorrow morning, 11:30 EST is when inactives are released, and we will know then if Dalvin Cook is playing. Shit, we might even know at like 4 a.m. from a Shefty bomb.
I hope so.
And if he's out, you have to play Madison and Cash. Like, he's a stone lock. I would play him over Leonard Fournette. Eric in the chat mentioned Damian Williams. I would play him over Damian Williams. Detective Dirty in the chat mentioned Damian Harris. I'm playing Alexander Madison over Damian Harris. Madison would be the best 5K running back, in my opinion, if Dalvin Cook is out.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Yeah, so I feel like Henry, obviously Stonelock, Madison Stonelock, but we are going to be looking at some of these other guys that you just mentioned, like, Damian Harris, like Damian Williams, like Leonard Fournette. Who's your favorite, 5K running back outside of Madison, when looking at these other guys for cash?
Yeah, so if we don't get Madison, if Cook plays, I think the running back that I would play would be Leonard Fournette, just because he's going to be stone chalk. He's 5,200, cheapest of the bunch. I think his role is intact. I don't think there's really any concern of Ronald Jones factoring in anymore at this point, in my opinion, unless Leonard Fournette just becomes trash and misses blocks and fumbles and whatnot. Then we'll see Ronald Jones. But Leonard Fournette has looked good. He's got the pass game role. I know that could change if Gio Bernard is active, but even if Gio Bernard is active, I don't expect him to really factor in that much. He's going to play, 30% of snaps? Maybe. Gio Bernard is averaging 20% of snaps in his healthy game so far this season. So it's like he doesn't really factor in that much. So I think my lean would be Leonard Fournette if we don't get Madison, and then Damian Williams.
I think I like Damian a little bit more than Fournette, although it's close because, you look at the Bucs team total and you look at the matchup where Miami is just a complete run funnel, one of the worst run defenses in the league. I think Fournette is a good play at 28 with a 28.75 implied team total for the Bucs. I just think that Damian Williams is getting 100% of the pass catching role for the backfield with the Bears, and with Gio Bernard getting a full practice in on Friday, I just don't know how that affects Fournette. But we're expecting a really positive game script here, and like you said, Rojo's just completely been phased out, so I don't know. I think Fournette makes for a really interesting tournament fade. Like, I don't think I'll be playing very much Fournette in tournaments, but in cash, I think it's kind of difficult to get away from. But like we said, Madison would be a stone lock if Cook is out, and then you're really deciding between a third running back, I think, in that spot, or 4 wide receivers an option too. But because of the value at running back this week, I do like 3 running back builds for cash.
Yeah, 3 running back builds are fine, right? Especially if you can go with Damian or Fournette and then Madison if he opens up, and then Derrick Henry. Like, the floor on that is just so high. I don't mind Damian. I think he's a good play. I just don't think he's a must play. I think Fournette is a little bit better. You're a little bit more skeptical with Gio coming back. I'm not worried about Gio at all. Like I said, he was playing on 20% of snaps averaged in the 3 games that he was healthy. So I think it's Leonard Fournette's backfield, and you get a $400 discount off of Damian Williams to Fournette. Higher team total, right? Better game environment. Bucs should be out to a lead against the Dolphins in this spot. So it's going to be a great game script for Fournette, but Damian Williams is a fine play, and I don't know. I just don't think he's a must play personally.
Let me ask you this. The Vikings implied team total is jumped 1.5 points. Is that an indication on Dalvin Cook's status? But by any chance, the Vikings are now the highest implied team total on the slate, the only team with an ITT of 30 or above.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I don't really think, Dalvin Cook matters
I
to
mean,
Vegas.
you don't think he's worth a point and a half?
I think it's the fact that everybody's betting
Yeah.
on the Vikings, and that spread has moved like 5 points since open. So, yeah, I just think it's because the Lions are horrible and they will
Yeah.
probably give up 30 points, and Minnesota is going to go on their own. So they're low key becoming my favorite stack to play this week. Ownership in consideration.
Let me ask you this, man. I went on a little bit of a Damian Harris sort of like, I don't know, I guess not a rant, but I was really into Damian Harris as an under the radar tournament play when we recorded the podcast. And since then, the Patriots offensive line is just in complete shambles right now. I mean, I think it's still offset. Like, I'm not too worried about it because Houston is like, a D3 college team at this point, or like a high school team. Like, they're god awful. They have no talent. So like, I still think even with backup O linemen across the board, like Damian Harris is gonna be a good play. It's just like, I don't know what the ceiling is as a pass catcher. I mean, how do you feel about Damian Harris this week? How concerned are you, as a Patriots insider, if you will, with the O line concerns?
I think he's still a fine play. And yeah, obviously the Patriots missing 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen sucks, but the Patriots do have, I think, pretty solid depth on the O line. A lot of these guys have started before and they do have some chemistry there. So I think he's still a fine tournament play. Just really don't know his receiving role because we know Brandon Bolden is going to factor in, unfortunately. He's basically the new James White, just worse. So I don't know. Damian Harris played 61% of the snaps last week. Brandon Bolden played 32%. So if that kind of trends towards Damian Harris, which it looks like, and I do think they're going to run Damian Harris more as a receiver out of the backfield, and he's going to run more routes. Like he set I think he set his career high in routes ran against the Bucks,
17.
right?
Yep. Career high.
So 5,500, if you get that out of him, the game script should favor New England, even with the offensive line concerns. And I think he's a pretty, solid player as well. So if he gets you 100 rushing yards and a touchdown and 3 or 4 catches, like that's really all you need in tournaments, I think.
Yeah. The GOAT Tom Brady will throw for 485 and 5. Like, I could see that. And that's one of the things that I want to be getting off of Fournette for in tournaments, and like going to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, even Antonio Brown. Like, this Dolphins defense is absolute dog water, and it could be a bit of a flop lag, right? Like, Brady didn't have the great statistical game that everybody was thinking he would in the revenge spot last week. And, maybe he takes that out on this horrible, just absolute dog shit Dolphins D.
Yeah, and the Bucks have a 28.75 team total. It has been bet down 0.25 points, but they should easily surpass this total. The Dolphins passing defense has been pretty solid to start the season, but it is Tampa Bay. They are passing at the highest rate out of every team in the NFL over expectation. So getting off of Leonard Fournette chalk in favor of a buck stack seems like a smart GPP thing to do. And like GT said, he could easily throw for 405 or 404, and he's winning you a tournament. And Tom Brady's going to be low too. But just in terms of running back, who are your favorite GPP running backs? We talked about the cash core, and in cash, obviously Derrick Henry, Madison if Cook is out, Damian Williams, Leonard Fournette. That's pretty much it. That's all you're considering in cash games, I think. Who are your favorite tournament running backs?
Well, one that I mean, obviously the standout like tournament play of the week is Aaron Jones. Like, this situation presents itself a couple times, per year, where Aaron Jones is getting overlooked because of pricing, and Devante Adams is stone chalk. And like, Adams is a phenomenal play, don't get me wrong, but just the ownership leverage I think you're getting by playing Aaron Jones is phenomenal. I mean, we saw it in week 2 against the Lions. Like, he still has the 40+ point upside. This guy can pop off for 3 touchdown games, and this could easily be one of those spots. And if, he's scoring 3 touchdowns those are 3 touchdowns that Devante Adams isn't scoring. He's priced up high enough that I think that, you know, most people aren't going to go there. They would like rather settle for Saquon or Zeke if they're in the like the early 7Ks, and then if they're paying up, they're probably just going straight up to Henry most likely. So, you know, I like Aaron Jones a lot. He's a great play, and I don't. Other than that, man, like I want to have some Saquon Barkley exposure, but his ownership is like, you know, 15, 16, 17%. Like you're not getting a massive, like he's not going to be sneaky, you know, but I mean, I think he still has some upside.
Yeah, I definitely like Aaron Jones, and he's the standout GPP running back, in my opinion, just for the reasons that you mentioned. It's just the supreme leverage play, right?
Yeah.
Aaron Jones is projecting right now on established to run at 6% owned. Devante Adams is projecting for what? Over 30% as a wide receiver. And then you have Derrick Henry projecting for 30% in tournaments, 25% in tournaments, right? So you're getting leverage off of Aaron Jones' teammate. You're getting leverage off of Derrick Henry at the running back position. And then you can correlate that with a Bengal stack with Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. And that stack is going to go under-owned, right? T. Higgins might have some ownership. So, you know, you could play Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Burrow and Aaron Jones, and you have a very contrarian lineup right there with elite upside, in my opinion. So I think Aaron Jones is the standout GPP running back play of the week if you're paying up. And then you mentioned Saquon. I like Saquon. Zeke, I think, is fine, especially if the Cowboys get out to a lead. But I think this could be a Nick Chubb week at 6,700. He's cheap. He's getting the volume, right? Kareem Hunt has been, you know, the running back scoring all of the fantasy points, but I think that trend stops, and it's a Nick Chubb week going up against a run funnel defense in the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, Baker Mayfield is hurt. They're not going to be able to throw the ball on LA, so they're going to have to run the ball. And I think this could be a Nick Chubb weekend. He is relatively cheap, and some say he's like the most talented running back in the NFL, or, you know, top 2 just in terms of pure talent, right? So I like him, and the Chargers are giving up 114 yards on the ground to game, over 4 catches to running back. So all it takes is a big play or two, and you have a GPP winning week out of Nick Chubb.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, definitely. I think I love him as a correlation piece with, you know, either Keenan or Mike Williams, who, I mean, God, Mike Williams is just an amazing play this week. It's unreal. So, I mean, I definitely could see that. And another running back that, you know, I don't typically play the Nick Chubbs of the world on DraftKings unless they're in amazing spots. I like Josh Jacobs this week as well, which is, you know, not typically a player that I would go after, but he actually had a pretty decent role in the receiving game in his last outing against the same Chargers team. He had 5 targets, which, I mean, God, you don't really see that too much for Josh Jacobs. But I think that, you know, at home, they're going to have an East Coast team traveling across the country to, you know, it's going to be a home game. They're favorites. Injuries on the Bears defensive line. Like Josh Jacobs could score 3 touchdowns. And if he has, you know, some semblance of that receiving role, like all he needs is 3 or 4 targets, and he's a much better play than you would usually project for him. And he's going to go completely under owned because people are going to just be playing, you know, all those other 5K running backs that we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not playing Josh Jacobs.
Oh, Andy's leverage off Damian Williams.
But I mean, if you want to go there, that's fine. But I'd rather play Chuba. I think Chuba is also a top tier GPP play this week.
Flop lag.
He's clear cut. I think this is a good spot for the Panthers to just go out, statement game against the Eagles. You know, bounce back game. Chuba, I think, is better than Royce Freeman and Rodney Smith. It's going to be a solid game script. The Eagles are the worst rush defense in the NFL after 4 games, giving up over 127 yards per game, right? So I think it's a pretty solid spot for Chuba, and the Eagles are giving up 28 points per game to opposing running backs on DraftKings. The Panthers have a 24 team total, which is pretty good on a slate like this. So give me Chuba over Josh Jacobs. I mean, I can't even believe that you brought Josh Jacobs up on this fucking YouTube channel, bro. Like
Bro,
you're not playing Josh Jacobs.
I am playing Josh Jacobs.
Stop capping.
Dude, my
You are
favorite
not playing Josh Jacobs.
my
If you play
favorite
Josh Jacobs, you want to lose money.
No, dude, my favorite under the radar stack is the Justin Fields stack, and the only two Raiders I would be bringing it back with is either Josh Jacobs or Darren Waller. I promise you, I will send you pictures in the morning of Josh Jacobs and my Justin Fields stacks. I'll put them.
Don't listen to him.
I'll put it
Don't
in the
play Josh
Discord
Jacobs.
chat, man. So, by the way, join the Discord chat.
Real quick, should I start Gibson or Deontay Johnson? I mean, easy Deontay Johnson, 100%.
Absolutely. Unless you're playing in like a anti PPR league where you lose points for reception.
Yeah, if it's full PPR, I mean, Deontay
Easy.
Johnson, Antonio Gibson. I mean, is my biggest fade of the week. I'm about to sit him for Eli Mitchell and All Star. So like I'm off Antonio Gibson this week completely. Yeah. Not playing him on Draftkings, not playing him in season long, and Deontay Johnson is gonna see 15 targets. So we'll talk about him at wide receiver too, because I think he's a solid pivot. But
the only other running back that I feel like we need to bring up is potentially, and again, I mean, this is kind of gross, but James Conner with Chase Edmonds being a game time decision, like he could be interesting. And he is a great, he's a great tournament pivot off of Damian Williams if you're behind, or even I guess a cash pivot depending on if Edmonds is out. Like they're the same exact price. They're both 4 p.m. games, and Connor is going to come in at 2-3% owned, whereas Damian Williams is going to be stone chalk. So Connor's just a player to keep an eye on the status of Chase Edmonds. He's reportedly a game time decision, even though we got a couple practices in at the end of the week. So we'll see about that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not playing James Conner either.
I wouldn't be excited to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like you see right here in his box score, he's not going to get the receiving work. Maybe that could change with Chase Edmonds in there, but I still think his upside in the passing game is low, and you're going to need him to score multiple touchdowns to even hit 20 points, right? This dude is scoring 2 touchdowns and only getting 20 points. He's
not optimal.
He's a worse Josh Jacobs, in my opinion, at this point in his career. He's a worse Josh Jacobs. So
I mean, you've always hated James Conner and the struggles he's been through.
I mean, sure. And then the last running back that we haven't talked about at all like this entire week is James Robinson, who's going to have ownership. He's $6K, like he's cheap as hell. No DJ Chark there. He's going to get work in the receiving game. It's a good spot going up against Tennessee. How do you feel about James Robinson?
Absolutely not playing him. I'm sorry.
You're not
doing it.
So you'd rather play Josh Jacobs and not James Robinson.
Correct.
That's how I know you're capping.
How is that cap? You're talking about with Josh Jacobs, a home favorite running back versus, James Robinson, who's on a team that's A, going to get stomped by the big dog, B, Carlos Hyde is back, and Urban Meyer's desperate to win some favor back with his team, so he's going to go with the players that already like him, like Carlos Hyde, right? And just from an overall perspective, I just think the Jags are just a heavy fade this week. Outside of Marvin and LaVisca, no, thank you. This team is on the precipice of collapse. James Robinson's not going to be doing anything when they're down 21 at the half. Easy fade. I mean, if he had no ownership, then maybe I would consider it in tournaments, but he's actually going to be owned.
Yeah, he's projecting for, what is he projecting? He's projecting for 14.5% ownership right now in tournaments. So you're not really getting any leverage by going to James Robinson. So I guess that makes sense.
Josh Jacobs is half that.
I still think he's a better play than Josh Jacobs, though, even ownership considered. But we can move on to a wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you handling Devante Adams this week? Because he's going to be so chalky. And, wide receiver, 8,200, stone chalk, 30+% in tournaments. That's kind of difficult to play, I think, when you could get, guys like Hopkins, Moore, McLaurin, Mike Williams, all at significantly less ownership. And they all have really high ceilings as well. But, Devante Adams is in such a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, Devante Adams is a great play every week, especially at 8,200, right? He's going to get a 35% target share. He's going to have an A dot that's longer than a first down. He's going to have a bunch of air yards, right? This should be a decently scoring game. It's one of the highest total games on the slate. It's been bet up 2 points. The live total is 50.5. He's going to be the only owned wide receiver from this game, in my opinion. And he's a lock in cash games. Like if you're playing cash games on DraftKings tomorrow, Devante Adams better be in your lineup. Period.
And if he's not, you know where to send the invites to, right there.
Yes. But so in cash, you want the guaranteed, opportunity share that you're getting with Devante Adams, especially on a week where I think the wide receiver pool is the most interesting, right? I don't think there's really many standout plays at wide receiver. So you're taking the guaranteed targets, taking the guaranteed points with Devante Adams, period, point blank in cash. In tournaments, if he's 30%, you can't play him. I don't care. If he drops 50, then yeah, you lose, right? But if he drops 20, 25, even 27, 28 points, that's beatable, especially as chalk. And like you said, you can get upside from other players in these ranges. Like Justin Jefferson is going to be 5%. One of my favorite wide receiver plays in tournaments. DeAndre Hopkins, no ownership, right? Let me just take a look. Justin Jefferson projected for 7%. DeAndre Hopkins projected for 2%. Terry McLaurin projected for 5% ownership. Mike Williams projected for 1% ownership. You're getting
dude's dominating the league for the first 3 weeks and has one bad game on national television. No, he's a 1% play. Imagine.
Yeah. So you're getting leverage and ownership leverage, on these guys not named Devante Adams. DJ Moore actually is going to be pretty chalky. So I think it's a pretty easy tournament fade. Like if you're playing tournaments right, you have to play more contrarian. You can't play a 30% owned wide receiver because it doesn't help you, right? Like if we really break it down and think about it from a tournament perspective, if he goes off for 35 and 30% of the field has him, you're not separating from that 30%, right? But if he goes off for 20 and then you play a 1% Mike Williams and he goes off for 30, you're separating from 99% of the field. Makes all the sense in the world to me to fade him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a fear-based play, right? Like you're playing Devante Adams because you don't want him to drop 50 and kill you. But you should be playing for the opportunity to, like you said, leverage yourself against the field and separate from the field. So yeah, I think I definitely want to be underweight Devante Adams. Like I'll probably play a little bit of Adams in my Joe Burrow stacks exclusively, but I won't be using Adams as like a one-off in other lineups. I don't think that is sharp. Scroll down a little bit, man. I think that a really interesting conversation this week is the 6,500 wide receivers. We have Deontay Johnson, who you just mentioned, is going to get fucking 12 to 15 targets. We have AJ Brown at the same price, who, is coming back to, 2 limited practices, full practice on Friday. It hasn't happened for him yet, but there's still no Julio Jones in this offense. He should dominate targets in this spot against a terrible Jacksonville defense. And he's freaking direct leverage off of Derrick Henry. And then Keenan Allen, who's averaging 11 and a half targets per game, is also 6,500. All of these guys the same exact price point. Like, how are you differentiating between them? Are you playing them in cash, tournaments? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, man, it's tough. I think they're all great plays just because they're all going to see massive opportunity, right? You could see on the screen, Keenan Allen is basically a 10-plus target guy. Besides, an outlier Dallas game. I don't know how he only had 8 targets in that game. He's a 10-plus target guy. Let me pull up Deontay Johnson. 10-plus target guy. Deontay Johnson probably will have the most targets out of these 3 guys, in my opinion. He's going to get guaranteed opportunity in that Steelers offense, albeit it's not a lot of great opportunity, I would say. The lack of offensive efficiency is definitely a concern, and this is a very slow-paced game, in my opinion, going up against a tough Broncos defense. I could see this score being like 17 to 10, 17 to 14. Not a lot of touchdown upside there, in my opinion. And then AJ Brown, I mean, he's been a bust so far after, 1 month of the NFL season. But going up against Jacksonville, like you said, they are literally on the brink of collapse, right? Head coach, they don't trust him. They've lost every game so far. Obviously, they've suck. And AJ Brown is just a stone alpha, right? He's a grown man. We know what his upside is. We know that he's a great play every single week. And
he's been getting touted a lot, though. I think his ownership's going to get juiced quite a bit. Like he's not going to be under-owned anymore. It's kind of like the Odell situation last week where it was like, all right, man, this is pretty sneaky. And then by the end of the week, he was coming in at fucking 15, 20% owned. I think we're going to see the same thing with AJ Brown because it just makes so much sense. Like it's direct leverage off of Derrick Henry, which is still true. Even if he's 15, 20%, it is still ownership leverage and direct leverage off of Derrick Henry because AJ Brown's ceiling games are going to come in the opposite way of Derrick Henry's. But I mean, God, like.
Yeah. So you can see on the screen right now, Deontay Johnson projected for 6, Keenan projected for 18, and AJ projected for 15% own in tournaments. So you're not really getting, too much leverage in terms of ownership, but there is some there. Like you're getting some, but not as much as you would hope for, especially at the beginning of the week. But AJ Brown is still a great play. And, if you had to rank these 3 wide receivers, I know it's tough. How are you ranking them in tournaments specifically? And are any of them in your cash game lineup as we speak?
So in cash, I think Keenan Allen is the only viable one of the 3. In tournaments, I would probably rank it Brown, Keenan, Deontay. Yeah, I think that even though Deontay probably has the best target projection, or at least like a very similar one to Keenan Allen, like the quarterback play and the offensive and just the game environment in totality is just not good. Like, there is a possibility that the Chargers Cleveland game turns into a back and forth. Like, I mean, that Denver Steelers game is just horrible. So
yeah, it has a total of 39. The Steelers have an implied team total of 19 points right now. So it's a terrible game environment. I agree. I think Deontay, if you really want to play him, I think he is cash viable just because he's going to see opportunity. And that's all that matters in cash games, in my opinion. I don't care about totals. Obviously, it's a plus, but if even in a 35 total game, if you tell me my wide receiver is going to get 15 targets, like he's a great play, no matter what. So I think he's in play. Keenan Allen, obviously, definitely in cash consideration. I mean, if you really have some stone nuts, I think AJ Brown, you can definitely play him in cash. But
yeah,
I think all 3 of them are great options. And then CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are gonna have ownership. How do you feel about them?
It sucks because I want to be in. Like, I get why everyone wants to play CD this week. I get it. I think it probably does work out. But from a cash game perspective, I don't think that you can justify playing CeeDee Lamb in cash when, he has 8 targets over the last 2 weeks and Keenan Allen doesn't have a single game with lower than 8 targets. Like, I just feel like I would rather play Keenan 10 out of 10 times for 300 more than CD in cash. And then when you flip it to tournaments, there's just a lot of ownership there and you can get different, by getting away from it. So I don't know. The ownership is too high for me to love it in tournaments, and the players surrounding him are too good for me to love it in cash. So it's just a weird spot for CD, even though I do like him as like a play in general. I just don't know about, the other stuff surrounding it for DFS.
Yeah, I think in terms of cash games, I think CeeDee Lamb is viable. I definitely want to be in on the bounce back CeeDee Lamb game. And yeah, you said 8 targets combined. I think that changes. I think we know he is a top 2, option in this offense in terms of wide receiver, right? Obviously, it's Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. I think that's it. That's going to be catching the ball. Maybe Tony Pollard, maybe Zeke mixes in a little bit. But, I think his target floor is a little bit higher than what we've seen. This 3-target game, I think, is just a pure outlier game. And if he gets 8-9 targets in this spot on one of the highest total games on the slate, what do we have it at? We have it at 52 right now. It's been bet up 3 points. So it is the highest total game on the main slate. I want to be in on the CeeDee Lamb bounce back game. So I have CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen in my cash game lineup right now. But obviously these mid-range guys are fantastic. Dirty with a question. In cash, can you go Jefferson and Madison are too thin? I wouldn't play Justin Jefferson in cash. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think that I just don't see how you're getting up to Justin Jefferson because your lineup should be starting with Henry and Adams, and I don't see how you can pay up for Jefferson in that. Like, he's not a bad play on the surface, but I don't think I'm going Justin Jefferson in cash. Madison, stone lock if Cook is out. So
yeah. So these two are the cash game locks. So I'll just leave them on the screen just so it can get ingrained in your guys' brains. You're playing these two guys in cash games because the combination of floor/ceiling doesn't get any better than Derrick Henry and Devante Adams in cash games, right? You don't,
and the lack of guaranteed points on this slate specifically just makes them even stronger. Like must plays.
So these two stone locks, you're not fading them in cash. Period.
Yeah.
And then so if we take a little bit lower in the pool, I think some of these guys in the 5K range are in play.
Yes.
Who are your favorites?
I like Allen Robinson a lot.
For cash.
Oh, for cash? Oh, sorry. Cash, I mean, I like a little bit lower. I mean, I like Higgins and Visca in this range are the two that I'm really looking at. I mean, I think Marvin Jones is definitely cash game viable. It's just like I don't really have a spot in that price range to play in my build right now. Like, I think you could definitely play Marvin Jones at 5,700. But, I mean, the savings to go down to Visca at 48 are really good. And there have been some positive quotes about, them wanting to use him more, get him more opportunities. And, I mean, the matchup is great. So I like Visca. I like T. Higgins for cash games in this range.
Yeah, I think those are like the two standout plays, in my opinion. Visca is a great play. Obviously, without Chark, the opportunity should be massive. And T. Higgins is very cheap, 5K. He's cheaper than Boyd, cheaper than Jamar Chase. So I think he is fine. I want to go any higher than that in cash.
What about Jacoby Myers? People are really sort of getting juiced up about Jacoby Myers this week.
I like Jacoby, and I think if you want to play him in cash, you definitely can. Obviously, like I said, we want the opportunity, right? That's kind of all that matters in cash games is guaranteed opportunity. And we know that Jacoby Myers is going to be the highest targeted Patriots player. It's a good spot for New England, obviously. And this could easily be the game where he scores his first career touchdown.
Kid hasn't scored a touchdown since NC State, bro.
Yeah. I would bet on Jacoby Myers scoring a touchdown this week. Like, whatever odds you can get on that for whatever sportsbook you bet through. Jacoby Myers to score a touchdown. But
I don't hate Myers. Like, obviously, you're looking at him having 26 targets over the last 2 weeks, and that's mouthwatering against this Houston defense. But I feel like even with the offensive line concerns, like, I just think the Patriots go really run heavy in this spot, and I think the pass volume in general is down. So I don't think he's cracking double-digit targets this week, and obviously the touchdown upside is relatively low with him. So. I would definitely rather play Marvin Jones for $100 more in cash.
I think I'm on the other side. I definitely would prefer Jacoby to Marvin Jones just because I do think Jacoby Myers sees a good amount of targets. And as a Patriots fan, I think they know that the best offense for Mac Jones is a shotgun spread offense. He's excelled in that to start the season. They haven't been able to run the ball, even with a healthy offensive line. They
Right.
haven't been able to run the ball at all. And Mac is so good in that short to intermediate area in terms of as just a pure passer. He's so efficient at it, and Jacoby Myers lives in that area. So it's a match made in heaven. I think they tailor the scheme to Mac Jones' strengths, and his strength right now is playing out of shotgun and throwing the ball in a spread offense to, the weapons that the Patriots do have. So I don't think they go more run heavy. I think it's going to be a more balanced approach, if anything. But the Patriots are passing at one of the highest rates over expectation this year, and we could have easily saw that coming with the influx of pass catchers that Bill made a priority to go out and get. So I think that's the best offense, and I think Jacoby Myers is a cash game play. I think he's a good cash game play, but Visca, we talked about. T. Higgins, we talked about. I think there's only one other wide receiver in play for cash, and that's Kadarius Toney at 4K, who I'll bring up right here. I don't know how you feel about him. Personally, I think he's fine. If you need the 800 off of Visca to Toney, I think you do it. Slayton is out. Sterling Shepard is out. We've talked about it this whole time that we've been live. It's one of the highest total games on the slate, one of the best game environments. He's that short to intermediate receiver, works well with Daniel Jones. Obviously, we saw Sterling Shepard excel in that role, and I think he's a fine cash game play this week.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't have too much of a stance on Kadarius Toney, to be honest. However, for tournaments, I like the idea of playing Kenny Galladay. If you're stacking this game up, I think that's a way to get contrarian because Toney's going to be higher owned. Galladay obviously has, the highest ceiling in the Giants offense outside of Saquon Barkley, and he's going to go under owned, so he can sort of reduce the cumulative ownership of those lineups. If you're playing Dak, if you're playing Daniel Jones, who are both chalky, if you're playing CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be super chalky, like I like Galladay, and he's just in that price range where like nobody's going to play him at 5,900. So
yeah, I think Galladay is a pretty solid GPP option at under 10% owned, and besides the guys that we mentioned for cash games, every wide receiver's in play in tournaments. I think Justin Jefferson at the top is pretty good. DeAndre Hopkins is going to come under owned. We talked about Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams, Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of great options this week at wide receiver.
Yeah, I like the Bucs receiver. It's hard to guess which one to play because the one who has a boom week, it's going to be a different guy every week. But
play the one at less ownership. That's the one you play.
Yeah,
whoever's the least owned.
And they're all going to be coming in pretty under owned. I think Antonio Brown might be the highest owned. I think
Antonio Brown's going to be a little bit chalky.
Yeah, he is
apparently, but you can get Mike Evans at 3% owned.
Yeah, I like that a lot, to be honest with you. It's a great leverage off format.
Mike Evans is going to be the Bucs wide receiver that comes in at the least ownership, just because you have Deontay, AJ, Keenan that are lower than him, and Godwin is cheaper too. So Godwin's going to be higher owned, and then AB is 5,200 right here. So, yeah. Diggs on Toney? I don't think so.
Diggs on Galladay, right?
Diggs is definitely going to cover Kenny Galladay and the Cowboys defense. They've been playing like a man coverage blitz scheme defense. So if Kadarius Toney gets put on like Anthony Brown or whatever other cornerback on the Cowboys, it's a solid matchup for him. But the Giants offense has been actually playing really well, and I think Kadarius Toney will see 7 targets in this spot. I mean, Evan Ingram is a stone scrub, and I think we can move on to tight end.
Yeah.
Evan Ingram is 3,200. He's in cash game consideration, but he's a stone scrub, right? So we know where the targets are going to go. They're going to go to Toney. They're going to go to Galladay. They're going to go to Saquon. But at 3,200, it's fine. Evan Ingram. I mean, if you want to play him, I did.
I like Ingram in cash. Like, I think that he's probably my favorite option, out of this like group of guys that we're considering in cash, like Ingram, Max Williams, I don't know, Dan Arnold we mentioned earlier in the week. I probably wouldn't go there in cash, but like I like Ingram for cash, but his ownership is just going to be so high in tournaments, and he's such a legit scrub that it's just an easy fade. Like I would play any of these guys over him just for the ownership leverage when they all project very similarly. Like these dudes are all going to get like 4 to 6 targets, and you're just hoping to luck box a touchdown out of whichever one you play. So like I'll be targeting ones that correlate with my quarterback most likely, because the way that these tight ends are separating is by getting touchdowns, which directly correlates with the quarterback. So
yeah, in tournaments you just want to stay away from the chalky options, and right now at tight end the chalky options are, let me see, we have Evan Ingram, Ricky Seals-Jones, who we could talk about right now. I think you just lock in Ricky in cash. I gotta type him in. I think if you're watching this, you just lock in Ricky Seals-Jones. He's 2,500. He's going to play 90+% of snaps. He played 93% of the Washington football team's offensive snaps after Logan Thomas went out. He's a solid athlete. If he gets you 5 targets, that's all you need, right? He's min priced. You have to punt at a couple spots. Just punt with Ricky Seals-Jones. I mean, there's nothing better than getting a min-price player that is never going to leave the field, and you just got to hope a couple targets go his way and maybe a target or two in the red zone, and he scores a touchdown. And if he gets you 5-6 points, that's all you need, just because he opens everything up for your lineup, right? He allows you to get Derrick Henry. He allows you to get Devante Adams in your lineup and some of these other wide receivers that we want. So Ricky Seals-Jones is the clear-cut number 1 cash game tight end, in my opinion.
I think he projects a little bit worse than Evan Ingram, but that 700 kind of comes in clutch. Like, I'm not even going to lie.
Yeah. So I'm playing Ricky in cash. I think that is a very easy play. Punt tight end is obviously our specialty. Somebody just brought up Ross Dwelley.
I texted Joey a lineup earlier with Dwelley in it, and he told me I was completely bugging and I needed to take him out. So I think we disagree on Dwelley. Like, I don't see why not. Like, it's the same thing. He's a punt tight end. Like, he's not going to kill you. He correlates with Trey Lance. He's not really going to have ownership. Kittle's out. He's on IR. Like, Dwelley, I mean, why not? Like, why not?
I just think that Ricky is going to be on the field more than Dwelley. That's all. And you're getting a $200 discount. And then obviously Antonio Gibson is banged up. Curtis Samuel might not play. So if Curtis is out, that makes Ricky an even better play, right? I mean, yeah, if you want to go to Ross Dwelley in tournaments, that's fine. Good pivot off of Ricky, but I'm not going there in cash.
Yeah, I agree. I think in cash you're probably picking, really just between Evan Ingram and Ricky Seals-Jones at this point. How do you feel about the other options for tournaments? Like, I kind of like Tyler Conklin a little bit, just for getting exposure to a tight end that's on the team with the highest implied total on the slate. Max Williams is interesting. The Patriots guys. Gesicki's a wide receiver playing tight end against the terrible Bucs secondary at 4,200. Like, how do you feel about all these guys?
Yeah, I think they're all great tournament plays, right? The Texans are giving up the second most amount of fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Hunter Henry has been running more routes than Jonnu Smith. I think he's been targeted a little bit more as well. Obviously, you need him to score a touchdown, but at 3,700, I think he's a cheap dart throw. And then Mike Gesicki at 4,200 going up against the Bucs. They can't cover anybody. Newsflash. I don't know if you guys have been watching football, but they can't cover a goddamn soul. And the Bucs are a pass funnel. Miami's not going to be able to run the ball on them. So that puts Mike Gesicki firmly in play, especially with Jacoby Brissett, who has been targeting him like pretty good. So 6, 12, 6. And if Gesicki gets 7, 8 targets in this spot, he should score enough, to get you a dub in a tournament. So definitely like those guys. And I mean, are you considering paying up for Darren Waller in a couple lineups, or are you just like punting to these scrubs at the bottom?
I'm considering it. It's kind of the same thing that we talked about last week with Travis Kelce, where like the position is so bad, and because Kelsey's not on this lineup, because Kittle is on IR and Hawkinson is dealing with an injury, like Waller could put up legitimately like 25 more points than every other tight end, on the board.
Mhm.
So like I think that the ability to separate, and he's not going to be too highly owned either on DraftKings. Like, he's going to be like 5% or less. So I like Waller for tournaments, and like I mentioned a couple times, I like attacking the Justin Fields stack. So Waller makes sense as a bring back in a cheap stack where you have the salary to do it. But like most of the time I'm paying up for running back or wide receiver. So I'm not going to have a super high stance on Waller, but I do like him this week. I think he should be in a decent portion of people's tournament lineups.
Yeah, if you get a ceiling performance from Darren Waller, like there's just no way you're gonna lose, right? You're gonna have him to win a tournament. So definitely think you got to sprinkle in Darren Waller, and anybody watching, just start asking any questions you got. We'll start answering your guys' questions here, and any cash game tournament questions, fantasy redraft. I don't know any other formats of fantasy, but yeah. So who's your favorite updated long shot of the week in tournaments? Give me the guy who's gonna go off for 30 plus DraftKings points at lower ownership.
I have this feeling in my soul that it's Allen Robinson week.
Allen Robinson week, huh?
Yeah.
Why?
It's just
cause
I hate to use the like he's due argument, but like
he's due.
He's due. Like, come on, bro. Like he's 5,500. He's out. Like this dude is an elite wide receiver. He should theoretically have the best quarterback play he's ever had. Like if we get in any type of situation where the Bears are trailing and they have to start passing more than they've had to in these other games, like it's got to happen for Robinson eventually, right? And at 5,500, no ownership, the Raiders have a beatable secondary. I like it a lot. And I mean, God, like, but there's so many good plays, man. There's so many good plays on this slate. Like Mike Williams at 1%. Like, how are you not jamming that into every lineup?
Yeah, I mean, my longer shot, he's going to come in around like 6-7%. It's right here.
JJ.
Justin Jefferson. He's had a couple good games in a row, but I think this is the week where he puts up 30 plus, gets 7 to 9 catches, 100 plus yards, and a touchdown from Justin Jefferson this week. I'm playing him. I'm playing Kirk Cousins. And DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
I know he's been pretty trash to start the year, but this was a second round pick in best ball and redraft, right? He's going to come in at what? Let me see. He's going to come in at 2%. 2% owned. He's in one of the best offenses in the NFL, attached to Kyler Murray. So you can run a Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins stack and have a cumulative ownership between the two of them, potentially 12% or under.
Yeah.
Are you not jamming that in?
I'm jamming that
in every tournament line. Like this is the definition of the highest floor / highest ceiling stack, little mini stack on this entire slate, in my opinion, with Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. You got to pay for it. So you're going to have to get, a little crazy in your lineup and get some value in there. But God, the ownership leverage that you're going to get with these two is incredible.
Yeah. And I like Hopkins as, a piece with Trey Lance as well, because, the price tag is a little bit better. Like Lance is going to be chalky, but that's kind of offset by playing a 7,600 wide receiver who's going to be under 5% owned. So like it really does reduce the cumulative ownership. Washington defense in cash. Detective 30 asks, yeah, definitely.
Washington or Philly, whichever one fits.
Yeah.
Fine with either. But yeah, DeAndre Hopkins, God. standout.
Is there a wide
Standout play.
receiver? Like, do you like Debo this week? Do you want to go back to Ayuk? Like, is this finally the Ayuk week with no Kittle? Like, it might have to be, right?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I might be off the Niners receivers.
Yeah.
Debo's going to come in at 11% owned, which is fine, right? You could definitely play it. It's not like he's fadeable at that ownership. And he pairs well with Trey Lance, but I don't know. I think I just prefer to get up to Justin Jefferson for 500 more, or play Terry McLaurin for 300 more
No,
at lower ownership. You know,
for sure. But Ayuk is the interesting one, though, right? He's 4,500 and he's going to come in under 5%. Like the Lance to Ayuk Hopkins stack, like
DJ asks AJ Brown, CPAT, or Marquise. I'm assuming Marquise Brown at the flex. So I don't know your running backs, obviously, but if you're playing on Yahoo, CPAT has the running back eligibility. You're putting him in that running back. I'm not fading CPAT personally, especially with the injuries to Ridley, or Ridley's out and injury to Gage, right? So I'm playing CPAT and then I'm playing AJ Brown. I'm trying to get both of those guys into my lineup.
I don't know, man. I would I'm fading CPAT personally. Like, not like, I mean, bro,
No
like,
shot.
it's gotta stop.
Bro,
it has to stop.
you gotta ride it as long as it's hot. And CPAT's hot.
I know he's
With
hot right now, but
no Gage and no Ridley, they got nobody else.
dude, he still
Mike Davis
hasn't
is on,
played more than 42% of snaps. Like, this has to stop. It just has to.
Hey, Mike Davis is on the cusp of just being irrelevant. I don't know, bro.
God, it's so disgusting. Like, how can you sit there and look at your lineup and like think about CPAT over AJ Brown? Like,
no, you play
Jesus.
both.
Oh, he's saying, I think he's choosing one of the three.
I know. If you're choosing one of the three, you're taking AJ Brown. But yeah. I'm saying try and find a way to get CPAT in your lineup and play AJ Brown. Is what I would do. Because even if he gets 40% of snaps, he's going for 70 points. Cordero Patterson. It's just that simple. You know, we're just trying to fade the inevitable here, and the inevitable is that Cordero Patterson is
just busting.
He's busting everybody's process, right? He's the outlier this year, and he should see more snaps. So it's like, God. I'm glad he's not on the main slate because don't want to talk about him. But yeah, AJ Brown if I had to pick one of the three. Anything else you got? Just people, you got to get your questions in. Probably got 5-10 more minutes in us if you ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I really we kind of talked about it. Like, I like the few stacks that I had written down I wanted to talk about. Like, I like the both field stacks to Robinson and Mooney brought back with Waller. I like going after Justin Herbert to Mike Williams brought back with Chubb. You know, just pretty much covered everything that I wanted to get through in this spot. It's just a really interesting slate. Like, with the ownership is going to be so consolidated, and they are good plays, which makes them scary fades, like in Derrick Henry and Devante Adams. But let me ask you this question. Which of the two are you more likely to fade? Because I feel like we have the same answer.
I mean, definitely Derrick Henry.
Oh, wow. No, see, I was going to say Adams. Why Henry?
Just because he's more expensive, and I think he's going to be a little bit higher owned, right?
Yeah. I mean, it'll be comparable. I would say Adams because the wide receivers in the range have a better chance of matching or outscoring Adams than the running backs do, because we don't have CMC, we don't have Dalvin Cook. Like, really, it's just Alvin Kamara with a comparable owner, like a comparable ceiling to Derrick Henry. Whereas JJ, Hopkins, McLaurin, like, these guys could put up Devante Adams type games.
Yeah. I agree, but I think that also plays a part just because there are a lot, or I just don't think that Honestly, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I just think that Derrick Henry is going to be a little less owned just overall than Devante Adams, and I think playing a 9K running back in tournaments that's going to be the highest owned player is probably bad. And I think that Devante Adams can hit his ceiling a little bit easier than Derrick Henry can, and he's $800 cheaper. I don't know. I think both are great fades though. Like I'm like not playing both. Samuel, I mean, we didn't really talk about Curtis, but Curtis Samuel, is he a lock if he plays? No. I think you don't play Curtis this week.
I think he's viable, but he's definitely not a lock.
I think the lowest you go is Kadarius Toney at 4K.
Yeah,
because you can pretty much jam in everybody that you want without going to Curtis. So there's really no need.
Yeah, like we talked about it earlier, like on the podcast, we were talking about how Curtis Samuel could kind of be like a key to the slate because he would allow you to jam in 3 of the top high price options. Because at that point in the week, we were looking at, CMC potentially returning. We were looking at Dalvin Cook in an amazing spot against the Lions. But now, like, since those guys are they're both completely out of cash game consideration at this point, it's like you don't have to go there anymore. So you're really only paying up for Henry and Adams, and you can do so without playing a 3K wide receiver. Like in my cash shell right now, like I'm not even playing Toney. Like the lowest price wide receiver I have is LaVisca, and I feel good about my lineup right now. So
yeah, there's just a lot of viable options between 4,800 and 6K this week at every position. So I think the overall more balanced approach is probably better from a floor / ceiling combination than the stars and scrub approach this week, just because of the lack of stars that there are on this slate. So yeah, I think the lowest you go is Toney, but you definitely don't even have to go to Toney. You can go to Visca or T. Higgins and field a pretty solid cash game lineup. And, I think the cash core is pretty easy. And if you just want to watch who's going to be owned in cash, just go watch Ben's video. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody has any other questions, get them in. It's about that time where we close it out because we have to be up early because the grind doesn't stop, Joey.
Grind doesn't stop. Got a game at 9:30 a.m. Falcons Jets London game. Probably not even going to watch that, to be honest. But I'm going to be up.
I'll have it on in the background, while I'm building. But sound off, bro.
But yeah, I think we covered everything, man. I mean,
I think so too.
Cash should be a good week in cash, and I say that probably going to get fucking busted. Still got some money in my balance, as everybody could see. I got to go reserve my tournaments, and I'm gonna make some lineups after the stream is over. Me personally, I make my lineups like the night before, and then I edit what I need to edit beforehand, in the 2-3 hours beforehand, watch some streams, etc., etc. So I'm gonna do that. Got to reserve some tournaments. Got to try and bink, the millie, right? We got to try a bink this week. I was close last week. I was in first for a little bit, for like 30 minutes. Not in the millie. I wish.
I was about to say
no. And Al Smizzle's listener league, I was in first for like half an hour, and then some run bad happened. Pretty standard in my life, but
yeah, you hate to see that.
Try and bink a tournament tomorrow.
All right, guys. I think that's going to be it. Looks like we've gotten to everything. Appreciate you guys tuning into the stream. If you're watching this on replay, man, drop a like on the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've been gaining subs every single day. It's pretty dope. We're almost up to 300. I think we just crossed 280 today. So, help us get to that 300 sub benchmark. We will greatly appreciate it, man. And we'll be back on Monday with a new podcast recapping the action from this week. Thursday, we got the preview podcast for week 6. And of course, Saturday, we will be back once again for the late night stream. Looking forward to talking to you guys then. Deuces, man. Good luck on the Week 5 slate.
Yep.
Let's sail to the money this week.
Hopefully, we're rich come the Monday podcast.
Be such a vibe.